Hi there, my name is Louise and I am a lecturer in the Nursing Midwifery Department in the University of Limerick. I just want to take this opportunity to talk to you about the core attributes and values that nurses have and how we use these in our practice area. I would like to tell you a little bit about myself. I qualified in 2007 in the university and went on then to work in practice. And since I've come back as a lecturer, certain things have come to mind and often I feel a kind of a sense of déjà vu that even though practice has changed and we've come on an awful lot and developed as nurses, whether it be by our curriculum and research, that the fundamental things remain the same. When we talk about the fundamentals, what I think of is the art and the science of nursing. And the art and science of nursing can mean different things to different people, but when I think about the art and science, I think about nursing from here and nursing from here. And when I talk about our attributes, I'm talking about compassion, having empathy, working as an advocate for our patient. And when I'm thinking about what comes from here, I'm thinking about the knowledge and skills that we gain and the way in which we develop. So what makes us different as nurses? We take on multiple different roles and act in many different capacities. And when you think of nurses and midwives, you think of that midwife handing that new baby to that woman after 9 months and introducing that baby to his or her mother. You're thinking about the nurse giving chemotherapy to a patient who may be just newly diagnosed with cancer. You're thinking about a patient who's giving good news, bad news, all different capacities. But when we think of the fundamentals, we're thinking about how we combine the evidence base, our knowledge, and we deliver that then with compassionate care, with empathy. And everything we do is person-centred, much like other disciplines, but I think we set ourselves apart that no matter what we do, we try to deliver an individualised approach, a person-centred approach, looking at the individual and asking what do they need. And it always draws me back to I was newly qualified and out in practice and feeling kind of overwhelmed and a bit apprehensive but really excited about what I was going to do. And someone asking me, so what are you? And saying I'm a nurse, and thinking how loaded that sentence was and what it meant and how proud I was to be a nurse, but at the same time feeling how responsible and accountable I was and how I was going to look after vulnerable people. But within that then, I remember one particular instance with a patient who had asked me to stay with her when she was getting news from a particular consultant. And it turned out really well for her in the end, but that day she got bad news. And I remember thinking about our nursing instinct, and I really think that a lot of the time we go by our instincts in nursing. We can talk about all the complexities and all the research and all the evidence base, but often we go by instinct. And here in the Nursing Midwifery Department, where I trained also, this is where you learn to hone those skills, both the art and the science of nursing, and the negotiation between the two and the way they complement each other. But for that woman that day who had asked me to stay with her, what she needed from me was somebody who was strong and calm in that situation. It wasn't anything complex. And a couple of days later, she said to me, how did you know what to do in that time, at that time? And I remember the only thing I did for her was give her a reassuring smile and ensure that I knew the information afterwards, because once she got that diagnosis, she didn't hear anything else afterwards. But I think the nurse is there for what the patient needs. You are there in that moment. And that's how simple nursing is. You're there, you're person-centred, you're there for that person. And I can remember being a secondary school student and people telling me, and I saying, I want to do nursing. I really, really want to do nursing. People saying, oh God, it's very, very hard. I'm definitely not going to say to you that nursing isn't challenging. It's definitely challenging, but it will never be boring. You will always see something new. It is so worthwhile. You're contributing to society. You're making a change in people's lives. And I would encourage anyone who has an interest in nursing to definitely do it. I would be very lucky because I come from a background where I have lots of nurses in my family who would have encouraged me and I would have had a lot of admiration for. And I can remember being very, very small, and one particular aunt who worked in paediatrics, who will kill me for mentioning her in this video, who I can remember going up, being on holidays and seeing her going out on night duty and asking my mum and dad at the time what she was doing and going out to look after sick children and saying, do their mammies and daddies not look after them? And she's saying she's a very special person, she's a nurse and she's the only person who can look after that patient. So that's what we are special to those patients. And when we talk about our values, values are very important to nurses as well. And last year, there was a big initiative to reaffirm our core nursing values. So our values now, as have been affirmed, are care, commitment and compassion. And these can be interpreted in many different forms, but at its essence, we care, we are committed to providing this care, and we provide it with compassion. Because even though we have all this intellect and knowledge and skill, and my other half would often call it the mind vault that's filling up with information, if we don't deliver it with compassion, that is what the patient remembers. They remember your approach. They remember the way in which you hold their hand. You guide them through something that may be really complex. For example, a good diagnosis, maybe a bad diagnosis, complex information. And nursing in its essence is complex because we deal with human beings, and human beings by nature are complex, and nurses adapt. We're real chameleons. We adapt and morph to be able to look after our patients. So it takes a really special person to be a nurse, but I think anyone can be a nurse. It takes an institution like the University of Limerick to nurture nurses. And I learned so much while I was here, and usually now it's a bit surreal because I have colleagues of mine who used to teach me and imparted so much wisdom to me. And now I see things being repeated. Now it's evolved exponentially because it's been a good while ago, but the same things are being repeated. And what they would have instilled in me, that your approach, your compassion, the way in which you approach your patient is the most fundamental aspect. If you want to learn anything else about nursing and midwifery, please feel free to contact me at louise.a.barry@ul.ie in the Nursing and Midwifery Department in the University of Limerick.